Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison. I want to welcome you to this session of Humanity Rising as we convene our fifth of five sessions on conscious leadership. Today, focusing on the role of women in creating global change in an inspirational and visionary way. I also want to note as we begin this session that this will mark the end of a very important phase of Humanity Rising. You'll remember that we started on May 22nd, 2020, in the depth of the pandemic, and we went 7 days a week all throughout 2020. And then beginning in January of 2021 till today, we've been going 5 days a week. And starting next week, we're going to be shape-shifting to once a week on Friday, where I will convene the session and provide either updates on world affairs and various matters pertaining to the human future, or I will be interviewing some person of note, as we've been doing over the last number of years. We've had well over 2,000 speakers on Humanity Rising. We've covered virtually every code red issue of our time. We have explored the reality of extraterrestrial presence on Earth. I would say there hasn't been a major issue of note that we haven't covered. And our transition to this new structure is born to a very significant degree out of an opportunity that Tom Eddington, the co-convener of Humanity Rising, as you all know, and I have been presented with by the spirit world to reconvene the State of the World Forum, which I was privileged to convene back in the 1990s, between 1995 and the year 2000, in partnership with a range of luminaries around the world, headed by Mikhail Gorbachev, and including Jane Goodall and Elie Wiesel and Desmond Tutu and Muhammad Yunus and Vandana Shiva, and another dozen or so co-chairs to look at the seminal issue of that time, which really revolved around the ending of the Cold War and the era of nuclear exchange in a hostile way between the superpowers, to discussing the possibility of a peace dividend, of a era of stability around the world. Between 2025 and 2030, I think all of us are very aware that we're entering into a reckoning for humanity, the like of which we humans have never encountered, as far as we know, in the entire annal of our history as a species. We're at a moment where human action and human intent has brought human civilization to the brink of self-destruction. The escalating climate disasters that are besetting our world, the complete failure of any kind of leadership at a national or global level, the impoverishment of human spirituality and human culture has brought humanity to, quite literally, the precipice. At the same time, we have unleashed what Yuval Harari, the great historian and social intellectual, is called the most consequential development in all of species history. And that is the development of artificial intelligence, which marks the first time that human beings have imparted their biological intelligence into silicon, into machine intelligence. And already we've seen that intelligence imparted in machines is taking the machines to areas where no human has ever tread. And because it's all unregulated, we are being confronted with challenges that we don't even know about yet, but which will come at us by an intelligence not our own, acting with a sophistication we've never imagined. And simultaneously with that, the US government and senior officials in the US intelligence and military and political communities are informing the world that non-human intelligences are here. They've been here for some time. They have a range of species, and that humanity is not alone. So how we balance the code red issues on the one hand that are threatening us existentially, with now two intelligences that are also confronting us existentially, is the fulcrum that humanity has reached in our generation, in this moment. We are at an inflection point, unprecedented, and nothing less than a radical upgrade of our consciousness will deliver us. Because the consciousness that produced our problems can't solve the problems. And yet, in an extraordinarily synchronistic way, for us to deal with the intelligence of AI and the intelligence of the extraterrestrials will require the very upgrade in consciousness we seek and we need. The State of the World Forum that'll be convened December 14th through 18th of this year at the Omni Shoreham Hotel in Washington, D.C. will mark the first time ever that a convening will take place that brings all these issues together. It's never been done. And unless and until we do that and connect all the dots, humanity will not only not understand what's going on, but will be unable to redeem itself. So that's why Tom and I are embarking on a concerted, focused effort with partners and peers that are gathering from all over the world to convene this conversation in the spirit of transforming conversations that matter into actions that make a difference. So I want to invite all of you to be there. Our website is going up probably over the weekend. We're working very hard on it. It'll be available next week. We've made a deal with the Omni Shoreham Hotel that you can get rooms for only $115 a night. So we're making it as affordable as we possibly can for that aspect of humanity that cares deeply about both the crises that we are in and yet also the opportunities inherent in these crises can gather starting this December through 2030. Just think of it as Humanity Rising in a different form. And week by week, I'll be giving people updates. We'll be interviewing key people that'll be coming to the forum, and we invite you all to join us. So Humanity Rising is not going away. It's shifting to a higher frequency, a higher level, so that we can optimize the impact we need to have to make the difference history demands of us. So thank you, everyone, for joining us here on Humanity Rising. It has been such a pleasure for me personally, and I know for Tom, to be part of this community at this moment in our lives. In that spirit, I'd like to invite Tom to join us, and he'll convene our program for today. Thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate your enthusiastic welcome this morning, and just the excitement of putting together the State of the World Forum. It's been an extraordinary week. For me, when I think about the week, it's been a combination of just amazing conversations with the women who have joined us this week. It's also been an amazing week here in the greater New York area, with springtime, being out every morning to enjoy the flowers and the trees that are in bloom, and the preparation for the State of the World Forum. There's just so much that's for each of us to be grateful for in what's happening in the world. The millions of people on the streets, not just here in the U.S., but elsewhere, saying it's not okay what's happening. It's not okay where our leadership is attempting to take us off the cliff. And to be able to hold that dichotomy of the way that things have always been with what's wanting to emerge. And that's been part of the conversation this week. And one of the things I've really enjoyed about the prompts, the discussions, the conversation that we've had. And I want to welcome my good friend and colleague, Shawne Mitchell, to kick us off for today as we bring our band back together from the week to have another rich day of programming. Welcome, Shawne.
Thank you, Tom. And thank you to Jim, too. I actually was blessed to meet Jim originally in the 90s. I finally discovered it was Alan Cranston that introduced us. And that when we did meet, you invited me to the first the first State of the World Forum, and I went to those up in San Francisco. It was amazing. And it's very exciting that you're bringing the State of the World Forum back. And, it's been a great week. I do want to invite the panelists that are here to, come on board here. Two of our panelists this week won't be able to come today. Heidi and Jorien, and two of our panelists will be coming in late today, and that's Jude and Kristin. But I want to welcome Caroline MacDougall and Juliet Rohde-Brown, Diane Williams, and Karen Buckley back into the room. I'm going to, hello, dear ones. I'm going to lead the reflection this morning, and then I would love for the 4 or 5 of you to please feel comfortable, kind of along the lines of what Jim was saying. I really feel in terms of the divine feminine, it's time to be brave. It's time to be disruptive. It's, all of us know that our thoughts manifest reality, right? So how can we come together and, as I say, be disruptive, be brave, and come up with these visionary, out of the box, new scenarios that we can manifest together and to hopefully diffuse the scenarios that we're experiencing today with our leadership. So if I can begin, I will do maybe about a 4 or 5 minute a guided meditation reflection. And so I invite everyone to please get comfortable and close your eyes and allow your body to soften, like petals at the end of the evening. And take a long, slow breath in and a little pause, and then gently exhale like a tide returning home to the ocean. Feel your body begin to settle. Shoulders loosen, soften the jaw, belly ungrip. Nothing to do here, but just be. Nothing to prove, nothing to perfect. Now, bring your awareness to your heart, the quiet, glowing center within you, where your deep wisdom, it waits like still water, where love hums like bees in a hidden garden. And visualize glowing golden light surrounding your heart, pulsing, shimmering. This is the space of the divine feminine within you. And of course, it is also the space of the divine masculine within you. Continue with every breath in. Receive the divine feminine of softness, grace, and compassion. Breathe it in. And with every breath out, release, control, release tension, release attachment and expectation. Sink down, sink deeper, gently rest, as if laying your body into the warm earth held by the Great Mother herself. Feel her loving energy beneath you, steady, ancient, nurturing, like rich soil, cradling a seed, like waves cradling the shore. Allow her energy to rise through you from the soles of your feet to the crown of your head, rooting you in belonging, in your worth, in your brilliant, stunning, dazzling wildness. Now, in the quiet of your mind, see and visualize a moonlit garden. The moon, the light of a full moon, lighting up your garden. Notice petals unfolding without hurry, vines curling without apology, gentle rivers moving in their own sweet time. This is the way of the divine feminine. She flows, she rests, she creates without force. She blooms in rhythms beyond logic, sacred, unseen, and true. Yourself rest here. Open your heart, open yourself. Feel the softness, open in receptivity. Perhaps you feel her hands upon your heart, cool as the river stones, warm as a morning sun. Perhaps you hear her whisper, "You are life, you are love, you belong to the rhythms of all things. You are enough." Breathe that deep knowing into your body. Let it root in your bones. Let it bloom in your heart. And when you're ready, bring your hands to your heart and whisper softly to yourself, "I honor the divine feminine within me. I am soft. I am strong. I am whole." Carry her with you today. The rose, the river, the moon, the earth alive in you. And take one final, slow, deep, nourishing breath. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes. Come back into the room with us today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Shawne.
So let's jump into the free for all, as Tom called it the other day. Welcome Friday as a time for all of us to hear everyone's voices in a less structured scenario. And I invite anyone who has something that's generating within them to speak up. I don't want to do the, raise the hands sort of thing, but if we get crazy, maybe we'll resort to that. But I also want to invite pause. So when one of us speaks, I invite everyone to have just a few moments to pause and take in, because our panelists they're luminaries too. Anyway, so I welcome you all and open the room up to you. Who'd like to jump in?
Did you have a question?
Well, yes, the question is, how can we be disruptive? What are some of the out-of-box scenarios? We understand that thoughts manifest our reality. We've talked a lot about all of that this week in different ways. So any ideas? Let's be, like I said, brave and disruptive. I know.
That's a big question to contemplate for me on the West Coast this early in the morning. So if one of you is ready to start, please do so.
I'll go ahead and share a couple of thoughts that were coming to mind, and then I'll get out of the way. Shawne, as I was listening to your opening meditation and sharing and just reflecting on the week, this will be provocative in the context of what we're seeing in the world and the narrative that we're seeing in the world. But what we heard this week over and over again is the energy of the universe is love. And I would just remind us that each of us is lovable. Each of us is loved. And each of us is love. And it feels like in the narrative that we're all living in the world today, that's a provocative idea. That's a provocative thought. That it's just really important to be reminded that we're each lovable, that we are loved, and that we are love.
Thank you, Tom. I'm going to actually call out Diane Williams. You do a lot of work with the UN. What do you see? Where might be some little spaces there that you feel can be raised to the next level?
Okay. Well, first, best wishes to Humanity Rising as it shifts to a higher frequency and to reboot the amazing State of the World Forum. That's very exciting news. So in terms of your question, I think it's important to demystify power, especially whether it's the UN and politics in any sector. And I thought about the one archetype, which is the destroyer and transformer, and that's the disruptive, like you're talking about, the revolutionary leadership that breaks down outdated systems. And for example, I think many of us are familiar with AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, that is disrupting traditional political structures to advocate for new progressive policies. And somebody like Vandana Shiva, an environmental activist, really working to protect biodiversity. She's come to the United Nations so many times. And she really integrates this ecological wisdom and activism to promote sustainability. I thought of Riane Eisler, who wrote The Chalice and the Blade, and she advocates for the shift in traditional form of leadership that based in domination and control towards collaboration and partnership. So I think just in terms of what I see a movement towards the UN, it's really important, I think, that we empower citizens just in general. So for instance, why not have us be polled about priorities of where our taxes go? It's also important, we see at the UN, because there's so many member states, that there's like a cross-sector coalitions made up of member states, politicians, spiritual leaders, maybe educators, tech innovators, that all come together and work on a collective mission. And I think the intelligence from this interdisciplinary coalition, these types of coalitions, I know in Italy, their government is a coalition. I used to live in Italy for many years. I know Kristin also lives in Italy. So the approach is more balanced than just one sector coming up with innovations. And I also think it's important to lift up local voices instead of saving, in quotes, communities, so that their wisdom is really tapped into and that they can imagine new possibilities that affect their life. And I think real change comes from deep listening and giving voice to those directly affected. I know I used to be very involved in the UN's Permanent Forum on Indigenous issues. And that maybe 2,000 Indigenous leaders would come to the UN, and they had the opportunity to speak directly to the UN community about issues that they were concerned with. So whether it was preservation of their traditional wisdom or preservation of their land and biodiversity, or to share human rights violations, they spoke and everybody listened, and then together solutions came up. So I think working in coalition through deep listening is really key.
Thank you, Diane. Caroline. You're on mute, dear.
Yeah, I know. But I think I saw Kristin with her hand up. So Kristin, did you want to say something
Oh, I
first?
didn't see that.
Yeah, I was thinking about when you mentioned disruption and we have activists and activism and there is this feminine way of creating change, of not doing activism because it's active in the sense of, ooh, I'm going to change the world, but this taking a stand through our saying no very firmly and groundedly, through changing our language, through advocating, but not screaming. And I mean, sometimes we may have to, and there is something in this, I don't fight, I take a stand for it, and it's a more firm way. I think it's very interesting to explore and experiment with that. And also, sometimes when we do this activism that's more the silent advocacy, the silent disruptor of creating harmony wherever we go, sometimes it's not noticed. Maybe you don't become the star, the heroine or something. And then the witness of our need for approval, because our society is so often created by system structures wishing to be approved often by the masculine, the big corporate, the big organization, somebody saying you're really good. So if you're doing disruption in a silent way, creating harmony, maybe people won't notice you, at least not immediately. And then being fine with that, being fine with, oh, I'm holding the context. I'm the context creator, or I'm open to receive the context, let's say. So there was some reflection that I was thinking about, that we are in a world of creating new things. It's the new, and often, or pictures in the mind of what is somebody disrupting. Sometimes it's from the old or from the masculine. So this new role modeling is very important, that we take a stand for that also. And second thing that I was reflecting on when Tom mentioned we are lovable, I was thinking that the feminine is about receptivity, and our creativity starts with receptivity, not just with my idea, I want to, but what can come to me. And from there, I can create it. So if I'm receiving love, I can spread the love. And of course, it goes like a dance, but I am creating and I'm created by. I'm created by and I create. And all that becomes this circular, spiraling way of being that's happening all the time. So, yeah, that was it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Kristin. Yeah, one of the things that I think about from time to time is, our media, because it has, captures so many people's attention, whether it's the social media, documentaries and films. So one idea comes to mind is, and maybe Jim, Tom, you're already doing this, but I would love to see maybe if you started a documentary of creating the State of the World Forum, and perhaps even having a women's crew. So it would have a women's kind of a little bit of an overlay there. Not to say that you couldn't have another one, but I'm just something like a documentary on the creation all the way through. Also, I love the whole notion of virtual reality. And what I find rather sad is that so many of the, let's call them games, are all about destruction and war and, Minecraft and all that sort of thing. How come we don't have really cool virtual reality scenarios that are about spirituality or love or different realms and celestial scenarios and fantasy of things we can't even imagine? But if we don't put our thoughts into, I mean, look what virtual reality and those video games have done in terms of destruction, how that mindset has manifested with young people. So my idea is, let's create some exciting, interesting, love, celestial fantasy. Can we create more loving sort of virtual reality games for the young people? Something different like that. Anyway, I want to give this back to our panelists. Anyone want to speak to what, Kristin or Diane or Tom or what they're thinking?
Caroline, you looked ready to speak a while ago. You're on mute, though. You're on mute.
Go ahead, Karen. I thought you looked ready to speak now. Well, that was a wonderful meditation, Shawne. And I had a great time kind of seeing all these images of these powerful female archetypes back through the ages. And realizing that here we are today, and each one of us embodies them. Some of them may be more active in us now than others, but we do all embody this divine feminine. And Diane, this call that you put forth of listening, both within and to the multitude of voices. How do we, the question becomes, how do we encompass it all, right? How do we express it all? And then how do we become that force for good and for renewal and for and for change that brings forth that which is good for all of us, right? And so that's the question I know we're trying to answer, and I'm not saying I have the answer here today, but I do think it does come from that listening within and receiving that extraordinary inspiration. I think there are a number of forces going on right now that are going to bring about a paradigm change. And I am hopeful that somehow the female voice becomes united with females all over the world. I don't know how that will particularly, express itself, but we need to have that one voice with which we speak of love, in which we say, this type of warfare is unacceptable, period. And so I do believe that that more and more people are tuning in or becoming aware that they can tune in to the other side, to the voices that speak from not being in the body particularly, or also from being able to communicate even amongst humans, from human to human, but without verbal speaking. And I think that is going to become more and more. And I know everybody's excited about artificial intelligence, but I'm excited about all of our intelligence. I'm excited about knowing much more human to human, that in a nonverbal way, that allows us to receive knowledge and inspiration and feel united with each other. So I'm not saying I have any answers here. I'm just telling you what's top of mind for me in terms of where and how I think we need to move forward, and the impulses which I believe are arriving at this time to do so.
Yeah, thanks, Caroline. What comes to mind with what you're sharing is, and I know pretty much everyone here is aware of the telepathy tapes and this phenomenal young woman named Veda Austin. And if you've watched any of those podcasts or videos or whatever you want to call them, I think it speaks to what you're saying, Caroline, is that it's bringing forth to those of us who have been unaware of the deep knowing that's available to us, whether it's, learning and speaking telepathically, and what Veda Austin says about, the autistics say that water is love. Well, everything is love, and water is God. Well, everything is God. So I just wanted to, just sort of piggyback a little bit on what you were talking about there, because I've been watching that too, and it's just like, whoa, really poetic and mind-blowing. But I want to open up the room here to the rest of you. Julia?
Thank you, Shawne. And first of all, that was such a beautiful meditation you led us into this morning. Really special. And I want to say that it's also really wonderful to hear your voice in the mix. The theme of water, it was in your meditation and it's coming up now, and water, the world in so many traditions represents feeling, the deep feeling. And I think that's what we are calling for in this world right now. And somebody mentioned Mandana Shiva, and she was in the film that Kumkum Bhavnani made, that was called The Shape of Water. It wasn't the other well-known film, although I love him too as a director. Pan's Labyrinth is one of my favorite films. But in that, the women were gathering to actually use their voices and their force of volume together to work against Monsanto in trying to even move the flow of the river, to restructure the way that the river was flowing. And so that metaphor of this attempt to control nature and nature's voice coming back, and the women's role in that. So I really recommend her documentary films that show women across the world getting together. And that was made in 2006. But I think it's really speaking to today. And then I think of Clarissa Pinkola Estes' quote that we have to go to the river, beneath the river, and drop down to that place in order to come back up again and really see the big picture. When I think of small ways that we can make a difference, I think of the shaman and the scientist. I think Jean Achterberg said that that's the way of the future, the shaman and the scientist. So then I think of Robin Kimmerer, and her book. And in that book, Robin Wall Kimmerer, I think someone mentioned her yesterday as well, but she was in a mainstream educational institution doing research and used her voice. It was brave, to say, no, the plants from my tradition, Potawatomi, it is correct to plant those seeds in this way. And everyone was fighting against her, saying, no, you have to do it this way. And she just pushed forward with that. And sure enough, here the plants were growing in the way that was very vibrant and alive. So I think of inviting the indigenous voices, and the indigenous also respect the cosmology in such a profound way, and understand that even though we are here on this earth and we really need to honor and be in relationship with the plants and the earth people that come in all forms, human and non-human, or other than human, more than human, we also have to recognize that we are not the be-all and end-all. that there's so much more to this than we can even imagine. So how do I have a role in that? I don't know. I mean, what I've done in the past is sign up for a mainstream psychological conference and put a little panel together and bring an elder who doesn't even have the higher degrees, but somebody from the Chumash, bringing Art Cisneros and using my frequent flyer miles to help get there. And then just being the one to introduce and then stepping out of the way. And sure enough, people circle around because they're just starving to come back to their ancestry, the knowledge, the deep knowledge of beyond human and how that interacts with human. And I think the indigenous voices can really speak to that. And the more we can invite those voices in and step out of the way, so that then we can be invited back into the conversation rather than leading the conversation. If we are invited back in that moment, we may not be, us colonized, white-bodied people who, in many respects, are so far away from our ancestry and the deep knowledge of the universe and how it functions. So those are small ways, inviting those voices in, because often those voices know the way.
Well, that was beautiful, Juliet. Thank you.
Diane, did you want to say something specific? Go ahead.
No, please.
I'm in a very silent mode this morning, I guess. You sure? Okay. At the very beginning, by the way, yes, that was a lovely meditation, Shawne. I did want to say that. Thank you. At the very beginning of your question about creating disruption, I wanted to say, how are we already being disruptive? How in each of our lives, what ways? Because I do believe that the answer to how is yes. As soon as we say the yes internally, then we begin to act differently. We begin to think differently. And Juliet's examples of the panel and bringing the Chumash woman in, the elder in, I don't know actually if it was a woman or a man, the elder in, is to me not a small contribution. And as women, we sometimes call him small or little. And I think it's understating the resonance that an action can have, that it doesn't have to be an explosion, that one gesture, that one person who carries that kind of authentic incarnated knowing ripples into people's psyche and into their lives. So I want to spend our time today also thinking about not just conceptually what would it look like, what could happen, but appreciating and acknowledging how we each are already committed at the core of our beings to being disruptive of the pathos that doesn't need to be. I looked up disruptive in the dictionary, like I like to do, and it a couple of interesting words: unsettling. I'm very unsettling as a consultant. I love asking the hard questions. And I love the questions that disturb the rigidly held set assumptions. And I'm guessing each one of us does that. I'm guessing each one of us identifies some of those opportunities where we could see beyond perhaps, or question some of the assumptions. Another word for disruption was obstruction. And the wonderful metaphor of the obstruction in the river, that because of the obstructions in the river begins to sing. And yeah, there's just something really arising that we don't have to be in order to be an obstruction, that it's such a myth in our world that the symbols and gestures and embodiment of the masculine is what it is to be significant, of what it is to be disruptive. And Meg Wheatley had that wonderful essay entitled "Disturb Me, Please." And it's just a wonderful essay that's easy to Google and find on her website. And it's about how she learned to invite disturbance in her own mind and in her own life. And in her work with, as a consultant with clients, to invite disturbance, to really think through. And that is where listening is so important, because when I'm truly listening beyond what my current frameworks are, what my current mindset is, then that listening invites me in directions that I might not have considered going. It disturbs me. It's why oftentimes I perpetuate what I already know, and I repeat the past instead of listening into creating a new future. And the last piece, there were so many thoughts that were stimulated from all that you've said this morning, is also that every one of us is describing this listening and hearing these impulses. We're also creating structures and systems within which change is occurring. And Juliet and Diane and Caroline, I don't know your work like I know Kristin's because I've been to her conferences, but she creates structures and context within which every participant has a different experience in themselves and in their exchange with each other. And I'm creating those contexts and those structures and systems, and I think each of you are. And how we bring our feminine wisdom into our leadership so that we are naming the structures that are getting created, and bringing forth the qualities of those structures that make them different. What is it that makes them have a different kind of result than sometimes similar looking structures in the past, but that didn't evoke the entire being, didn't allow for that kind of unfolding of the deeper nature. I'll stop there. You've got a lot of thoughts going through me, but I just appreciate you all so much.
Thank you, Karen. Gosh, Kristin, I have this feeling that you might want to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, thank you for your intuition. And I was just thinking about being a disruptor and in a way a pioneer is also not easy. And sometimes, this group, we are working on in different areas, and often because a disruptor pioneer is not always understood by the masses and not always seen. Like, I'm so grateful Karen sees my structures, she can see, but many people think, oh, everything goes with the flow, so it's a mess here. But there is no mess. It's a clear structure where things can flow like the river. And so we are in a time of awakening, so more people see, and many don't see. And they may call you and say things to you that, because they cannot see, that may even hurt you on your way. They may choose not to fund you because they don't know what you're doing. They may choose to call you things that is not right. So in the journey of a pioneer and all the women who are in a way, all of us pioneers doing things that weren't there before, if we are doing our thing authentically, I also want to recognize how amazing each of us are, and that this work isn't easy every day, and that because we know we are together. And Shawne, thank you and Tom for taking the initiative of bringing us together, because now we know I have a few more sisters around, and there is Tom, a great brother, and this way the work is easier, and I think it will be easier, because just like Carolyn, you said, there are impulses arriving at this time. So we might have heard this call 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 40 years ago, 10 years, but the masses didn't then, but they may hear it now. And so then we then become the great mentors of those that are waking up after us. And at the same time, I was just thinking, I think we need to also be very good in supporting other women, and also the men who walk the path of the feminine, let's say. And I was also thinking about this thing with indigenous, so much we have to learn, and also how we all come from somewhere, and we can trace back our own indigenous or our own nature, living in harmony with nature, and meanwhile learn from those that are living that way today. So that was some thoughts I had about this, finding our tribe right now and support each other, and not give up, and use our intuition for that. I woke up in some days ago working on something kind of complicated, and I was sad, and suddenly I get my WhatsApp from a lady that I worked with in Nigeria, with whom I had not talked. And she left me a message with a big prayer. And she said, Kristin, I wish for you all the support. And I thought, oh, we are so connected. We don't need to talk all the time, like Carolyn just mentioned. And that meant the world for me. And then, okay, I went on with my day, and things worked out. And those little things that we remember, that is so precious. And thank you to all of you. Yeah.
May I come forward again, Shawne, with my wild self here?
Yes, yes,
in the
yes.
meditation. Kristin, what I'm not asking you to do it now, but I'm wishing for you to speak to the number of women who have attended your conferences, and how many meetings you have hosted, and how many speakers you have brought in, and the way in which we as women lead with where the struggles are and where the unfolding and the emergence is, instead of leading with, and it's fine, and it's a way we share and we build connectedness. And a very brief story, I went into ChatGPT to ask for coaching summaries. So I've been working with clients for over 20 years. And after every team meeting and executive coaching session, I send them a summary that includes next steps and all the different developmental things that they're going through. And I utilized ChatGPT to summarize it. If I put a woman's name and the pronoun she in the prompt, ChatGPT started the summary with the women's struggles and anguish and insecurity. If I put a man's name or I put a gender neutral, I only used the job title, and I put they and their, then ChatGPT started the coaching summary with 2 paragraphs of the leadership that this person brought and the results that they got. It was mind-blowing. And it told me 2 things. One is we need to get all the feminine literature in the entire world into ChatGPT and start asking as many questions as we can into those sources that AI is drawing from. But the second thing is that we constantly need to be cognizant of and vigilant around our own patterns and the biases that are so completely woven into the world that we are not victims of, but we swim inside of. And we have choices to explicitly see them rather than suffering under them as though they are a given. Yeah.
Thank you, Karen. I'm going to just say, Kristin, at some point, if you do want to share what Karen asked, I'd like to leave a little time for that. I think she's right. It would be really valuable for all of us to hear about what you do. But if we can just hold that for a minute, I do want to invite Tom back in and get his men's take on the conversation so far.
Yeah, I have many things arising in me. One of the things that I just wanted to share is that, like today's panel, I've had extraordinary guests and panelists over the last several years of doing Humanity Rising, and one of the panelists I was blessed to have was Jane Goodall. And as we were closing out the program, I asked her, I said, what gives you hope? You know, you've been at this work for most of your 90 plus years. And her answer, without any hesitation, was the youth, the children. And I had Dr. Sylvia Earle as one of my panelists on one of the programs. And as we were closing out the program, I said, Sylvia, what gives you hope? And her response was very quick. She said, now we know. And as I listened to our conversation today, I'm reminded that, you know, we're talking about artificial intelligence, and it's in its infancy. And after 240,000 years as a species, humanity's in its adolescence. And nature intelligence is 3.8 billion years old. And in our conversation with Jude yesterday, we were reminded of the billions and billions and billions of years of intelligence of the cosmos. And as a species, we're finally waking up to the reality of 3.8 billion years of natural intelligence on planet Earth. And we're waking up to the billions and billions of years of intelligence of the cosmos, and are finally willing to be open to that. And part of what I've experienced this week is this, you know, beautiful conversation with each of you about our receptivity, our interdependence upon each other and all sentient beings on the planet Earth and throughout the cosmos. And so that's what's there for me. And I just so appreciate each of you and the conversation today, and how you're showing up, not just on today's program, but in the world. And I'd love to bring Jude into the conversation. Welcome.
You read my mind, Jude. So good to have you here.
Thank you, Shawne. Thank you, Tom. I do apologize for being late. But Tom, what you just said touched my heart deeply. And actually, what I'd really appreciate sharing is the voice of another male friend who spoke to what we've been exploring this week. But I think it's a deeper exploration that's been taking place for the whole of Humanity Rising, and to go forward, Tom, with you and Jim, I hope, into the State of the World Forum. So may I just quote my friend? Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. What he said is that realizing in these pivotal times the need to usher in another way of being and doing in our world, we must restore love. And to do this, we must restore the divine feminine. Without this, we'll not be able to heal our wounds, we'll not be able to bring ourselves back into alignment with the cosmos, with that nature of which we're all a part. And for this, for love to flow, we must bring back and reintegrate the divine feminine. We must enable her voice to be heard and attend to what she says. and most especially in the way that women have been, or rather have not been, valued and heard, which goes on to what you just said and before. He goes on to write, but this is not the limit of my concern. For as an elderly man, I feel the loss in my own being too. The loss of the divine feminine is important to me as a man, for the feminine is beyond gender. Some part of who I am and have always been is denied. I acknowledge that the evident prejudice and mistreatment suffered by women is much more important than what has happened to me. But with the loss of the divine feminine, some part of what it is to be a man has been and is also denied. Men and women alike, we share in this loss, and it's made all of us who we are bruised and diminished. So in appreciating that, I personally fully recognize and wholeheartedly appreciate male allies like my friend and like Jim and Tom and many, many others who stand with us and together serve and support a new era of what was once known in perhaps wiser times as a sacred marriage between the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And that is my hope for us all for the future, that we can build together.
Thank you, Jude. Do you want to speak a few more minutes? You weren't here earlier. Is there anything you'd like to contribute to? We've been talking, all about disruption and love and the small things that we can do.
The only thing I would add in terms of disruption, I think we mentioned it yesterday, and it may have come up through the week. But a lot of my work at the moment is reframing where we're at and reframing a meta-crisis into a metamorphosis. Tom, you spoke to this evolutionary flow and impulse we touched on yesterday. And, the point with the metamorphosis, and you also touched on hope. And for me, reframing a meta-crisis with all its turbulence and not denying any of it and the challenges and the existential threats we nonetheless face, by reframing this metamorphosis, it seems that we can, perceive ourselves as imaginal cells in an emergent potential and possibility. And by coming together as we are and linking up and lifting up as we are, we can grow to become the emergent organelles of a butterfly, a human emergent butterfly, where, we see the world literally with new eyes. So I think that metamorphosis, and especially for the youth, and especially, who in many cases, they've inherited what we've given them. But if we can just help to empower them and inspire them and stay with them and serve them, then we can be good ancestors to future generations, it seems to me. And we can come through this metamorphosis together. So that's what I would invite us to consider.
Thank you, Jude. Diane, please.
Yeah, I can share. I was really touched when Karen said how she really saw Kristin's work, her efforts. And Kristin also said that you don't need to talk sometimes. And this reminded me of, Shawne, what you were saying earlier about the telepathy tapes. And if anybody viewing has not listened to these tapes, you can find it on YouTube. It's just incredible because it's, as you mentioned earlier, it's non-speaking children, and they use their inner technology. And it's sad because society doesn't really see their true gifts. They see other realms, they see ancestors, gods, they meet each other on something they call the hill, telepathically. All these children come together. And I think it's a real shame that, in the past, they used to be institutionalized, but not really knowing like all the gifts that they share is really important, and really seeing them. And you also mentioned AI and technology. And there's a game, my very good friend, Annalou Smithman, and some people also put this in the chat, Jude knows her, has an amazing game called Elohim, I think it's called. And it's the quest of the time. And it's really an epic transformational game where it's based on future human technology and the trilogy that she and Jean Houston wrote together. And it's really playing against the archetype of domination and coming together, in cooperation and peace. So a really positive game for young people. And you can find that on earthwise.global. And I was thinking many years ago, I got my little nephew a world peace game where it's not about competition, it's about collaboration and everybody wins. And he couldn't get that concept. He's like, but how do I win? And I was like, you don't win. Everybody wins. But I think it's so ingrained in children, that we have to compete and somebody has to be the one to win in the end. So we need more technology and games where children learn to come together and cooperate peacefully.
Thanks, Diane. I love what you say about the games, because when my my adult men sons were little, of course, it was Mario, and of course Mario's got this big, and I would note that just what you said, in a sense, you just got to the next level. You just got to the next door. There wasn't an end goal. And in the case of my sons, they did. That's who they are now. There's just another door. There's just another level. There's just, a few more jumps and twirls and whatever. But anyway, I don't want to sidetrack there. Kristin, I do want to bring you back in. If you would share what both Diane and Karen have spoken about.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. And over the past many years, I have brought women together from all over the world. I've been tried as much as possible to bring women from absolutely everywhere, like all over the planet, and into a meeting, conference, into an experience. So convening everybody to look at the world, what is happening in the world, to look at the workplace, and then look at ordinary life. And of course, it's all interconnected. But all of this with the vision and the way of how can we be and in a world, and what's the vision for a world that is more integrated with the feminine qualities and the workplace and our lives. So it may look like any other conference, but it feels very different. And with the pillars, that is the structure that is very clearly based on global possibility, interconnectivity, practice also, and feminine masculine balance, and all of these things. And it started up as a vision, and it became more and more a way, because often we have the vision, and then as we work on ourselves, we become it. And I started to do this. I was called then to go to Japan, to go to India, to go to Nigeria, to go to the Middle East, to go all these places. And the whole project has been done very much in that, it's the how, the sacred way, because I never pushed for anything in the sense I didn't, let's go to America. No, only when there was an invitation. And so this is how it's grown around the world. So now we've been around for 27 years, and the advocacy of the work is the way it is done. It's the how, it's the resonance, it's the frequency. And the service has also been to work with many people and many women who didn't know about the feminine really, but who after many, many years in corporation or organizations like that is slowly but surely waking up to it. But the opposition from many women too was that it was scary because it's changing, so. But the typical comment that people say, those that are aligned with it, is I come home. It's like once a year I go, I'm at home, and I get nourished, and I get sourced, I get connected, and I get new ideas and fresh ideas. But this thing of being ourselves. So it's a very good experience to feel, how can it be when we feel relaxed to be ourselves as bright women, as heart-filled women, as pioneering women who are leading initiatives many other places individually and come together once a year to really get grounded. And of course, more and more men are joining also. So it's more maybe about the feminine than about the women, and still there are also mostly women. So yeah. But I think also Jude has been speaking at WIN or being part of WIN, and been very conscious about the language. So instead of saying you're participating, you're part of it. Instead of saying, let's say, what's your goal? Let's see how life can unfold and how we can also reach our destination. So very conscious about the use of word, feminine, masculine, very conscious about bringing in art. So let's say if we say we want art, okay, let's bring it in there. So we have concerts, we have a little marketplace where people are selling handicrafts. So all of this is in a way physicalized also. So we have our vision, and now let's create that little world for 3-4 days. So we're living it. And then we are dancing and we are crying and laughing, and we are talking about world politics and how to run a company and how to whatever we are doing. So it's a big experiment in some ways, but it has been going on for a long time now. So, and in a way also been a lot of bridge building, because you talk to many women who don't understand, or men who don't understand the feminine part. So you got to build the bridges and talk in one way and try to bring them over. That part is getting easier. So I hope to see you along with us. It looks like we're going to take on Saudi Arabia, so this could be interesting also. Yeah.
Thank you, Kristin. And when she says WIN, it's the Women's International Network, correct?
Yeah, that's what it stands for. But the WIN conference is really like a 3-day, 4-5-day for some people experience. So of the WIN conference. It started with the Women International Network and networking as a symbol of how we can be together by connecting. So also how instead of being a manager, maybe you are a partner relation responsible, or your speaker relations, your sponsor relations. So we also created all the titles related to that world of connecting with each other. And that is networking, although sometimes the word has been a bit appropriated, but it's a whole philosophy of Ubuntu and of the web of life. And, yeah. Anyway, thank you for giving me this time to share. Yeah.
Thank you too, Kristin, and thanks Shannon for putting Kristin's information in the chat. If anyone,
thank you.
Shawne, as we bring Jim back into the conversation to wrap up the show, I just want to pick up on something that Jude mentioned in Kristin's work, as referenced by Karen, the importance of context. And for me, Jude speaks to we're in that liminal state as a species. We're in the opportunity of the imaginal selves, and so context is really important. And I look at the last several hundred years of humanity. We've been living with a context of extraction. What can we take from Mother Earth? What can we take from each other? And this next opportunity, this invitation we have, is to move from extraction to a generative state. We've been consuming 4+ equivalents of planet Earth and destroying each other. And so we have this invitation to move into a generative place, one of creativity. And I want to just turn it over to Jim to help us wrap up the program with an invitation for us to hold that context of shifting from extraction to generative.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you all. This has been a remarkable week and a remarkable conclusion to this question of conscious leadership at a moment when we need to be more conscious than we've ever been, and we need to lead in ways we've never had to lead before. The comment I would bring in, would love to have your comments on as well, is that beginning with what Juliet was talking about in terms of the telepathy tapes and the autists that are demonstrating this most extraordinary clairvoyance in the most challenged physical configurations, is to me one of the most extraordinary developments of our time. And I would recommend everybody look at or listen to the telepathy tapes. But it also brings up something that I've been pondering more and more about, a fundamental characteristic of our time. And that is the explosion of virtually every known category. You know, we think of autistic people as kind of crippled, handicapped. They've been put in special schools. They've been treating like morons. And yet they're geniuses at levels that we can't even calculate for. You know, we're used to masculine and feminine, and yet we're in a world of gender fluidity that is challenging all of our classical categories of masculine and feminine. You know, we're using GPT chat, and GPT chat, which is artificial, has an intelligence in some ways more sophisticated than our own. So, you know, one of the things that I find so exciting about our time is, in addition to what Tom is saying and all of you are bringing in, it's really one of those rare moments where we humans have the opportunity to completely recreate the world. Because there's no categories that we've inherited that are sufficient to enable us to continue successfully. So this generativity that you've demonstrated is in my view, maybe the cutting edge of all the virtues that we need to embody at this time, as we are challenged to recreate ourselves, the very nature of human identity. Even the ET phenomenon. You know, we're used to thinking terrestrially. And now, all of a sudden, we have to think cosmically. How do we do that? How do we do it in community? How do we do it epistemologically, ontologically? So we are in such an exciting moment. It fills me actually with great joy that we've been fortunate enough to be in some way chosen for this moment, which means that the capacity to recreate so that we can navigate through at a deeper and wider scope is inherent in all of us. And I wanted to end with this because you have all touched on this in the course of the last 5 days. And I just want to thank you for it and acknowledge your mastery in the kind of visionary leadership the world so desperately needs. And would love to just have each of you make a final comment concisely because of the time constraints, but I'll just call you out as you appear on my screen, and then we will bring the session to a close and this phase of Humanity Rising to a close. Let's start with you, Carolyn.
You know, I'm just filled with gratefulness. And Jim, you have been such a leader for so many people, myself included, for so many years now, always at that cutting edge of visioning where are we going next, right? Where are we as humanity going next? Where are we as other species going next? And, I want to tell you that my support is totally behind you as you close this chapter to some extent. Anyway, I know it continues one day a week, but you enter into a renewal of a chapter I was with you back in the 90s in our State of the World Forum. I'm just filled with gratefulness for you of always creating a space in which we all can gather and share and be inspired by each other. That's what I had to say this morning. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Carolyn.
And thank you, Tom. And thank you, Shawne. As you've been wonderful hosts this week, and I've been a privilege to be part of it.
Thank you. Thank you. Diane.
Well, thank you also, Shawne and Jim, Tom, and all the wonderful women that have been on this program for this whole week. And I think the most important thing we can do right now is to hone our inner technology. So our intuition, our remote healing, our connection to multidimensional realms, as Jim was talking, so that we can really walk together into this cosmic age, because I think that's the key to all change right now on the planet. So thank you so much for having this wonderful program.
Thank you. Thank you. Our inner technology. You're absolutely right. It's about inner technology, folks. It is about our inner technology. Absolutely. Thank you. Juliet.
I echo the thanks, the gratitude for inviting me into the mix. Tom, Jim, Shawne, thank you. And all of you women who, my goodness, to be included in the mix with your voices is just quite an honor. I think that if we can have more gatherings like this, more conversations like this is the way. This is the way, isn't it? So much gratitude for providing this, for facilitating this.
Thank you. Thank you. Plato was right. It's in the end, it's humanity's capacity to dialogue, to hold conversations amongst ourselves. That is the key to the discernment of the questions we need to ponder. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Karen.
Oh, thank you, Jim. What a week. Thank you to each of the women. This has been a week of feminine wisdom and leadership right out front and center. And thank you to Jim and Tom and Shawne. And I was just reflecting on how Humanity Rising has been really such an expression of wisdom in leadership. You've been not only demonstrating your own, but you have been highlighting so many different initiatives and intelligent ways of thinking, and people who have been discovering an inner technology that does begin to shift from a metacrisis to a metamorphosis. And I really appreciate that framing, Jude. Yeah, just a big bow of thank you to you all. Real gratitude for all the energy that it has taken to provide this structure and context within which something different could emerge in each of our hearts and in our collective consciousness. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you just nailed it, Karen. Metacrisis to metamorphosis. I think that's the bottom line.
I think Jude said that.
Yeah.
Attribution where it belongs.
Thank you. Kristin.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you, Jim, and thank you, Shawne and Tom, for convening and for organizing and putting your heart and your love and your brains into this. I feel a very good feeling in my heart, and I'm filled with gratitude for having been in this space and in this context. And I think as we go forward, we just have to make sure that these intelligences of the spiritual and the emotional and the physical intelligence have its place alongside with the intellectual intelligences. and that we make a conscious effort to value it, to see it, to hear it within ourselves and in the others and in the context itself. And if we do that, I think we are on the right path. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. You're so right. Context shapes content.
Mm.
And what you said and what Karen said, you're a master at shaping the context within which women have been able to assemble. And that then informs the content and the outcomes. So that's a very important observation. Thank you. Thank you. Jude.
Well, first of all, thank you, Jim. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Shawne. Thanks, everyone, all the community that you've nurtured through these years and onwards. But for me, a whole view reflecting all of this, we talk about act local, feel global, and think cosmic, and bring all of that into our everyday life. And I would say with love, joy, and gratitude as our North Stars. Because with those as our North Stars and with that as our embodiment of head and heart and hands, we can birth a metamorphosis together. So thank you all so much.
Beautiful, beautiful. We all need a North Star.
Or three, or one. However many.
It turns out to be the key virtues.
Yes.
It's the North Star is that inner technology that Diane was talking about. The North Star is actually inside.
It is.
Beautiful.
It is. Thank you.
Thank you. Shawne.
Oh gosh, everyone's thank you, and thank you. Deep gratitude, Jim, for the force you are in the world. And thank you, Tom, for asking me to put something together. And thank you to the incredible panelists we've had. It's just been a huge joy to connect with all of you. And thank you for accepting the request to join us this week. There really isn't much for me to say. I'm just super grateful. Jim and Tom, Humanity Rising, excited about the State of the World Forum. And I don't want to leave out Shannon and Stanley, who, there's just this foundational support back there that is sometimes unsung in a sense. So grateful, and hope to continue to play.
With pleasure. Tom, do you want to make a final comment? Then we'll close out.
Yeah, I'll share a couple of things. So a big thank you to you, Shawne. This was a terrific program. And I think I mentioned during the week, Shawne and I started putting this together months ago, not knowing it was going to be the last full week of Humanity Rising. And I can't think of a better way to end this cadence of weekly broadcasts than the week that we've had this week. I think the other thing I would leave us with is, over the last several decades, humanity's been exploring this this phenomena of PTSD caused by trauma. And what we talk about is the physical and mental, psychological, emotional impact of trauma. And we talk about increasingly in the last couple of years moral injury, but what we haven't talked about is consciousness injury. And as a species, we're suffering from consciousness injury. And my reflection on the last 5 years of Humanity Rising has been an invitation, an opportunity to look at that consciousness injury. And I'm hopeful with our intention for the State of the World Forum is it's an opportunity to further explore and deepen our understanding of the consciousness injury that we all as a species have been living in, but to rise above that, to repair that, to help tend to that consciousness injury. And so I would just leave that as an invitation to all of our viewers, everybody, that please join us in Washington in December and each of the next 6 years as we invite you all to participate in the State of the World Forum.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you all. This will bring us to a close for today. As I close, I want to echo what Shawne said of deep gratitude and thanks to Shannon and Stan and all the people that have come together, Georg, our tech director, all the people, Rick Buckley in the early days, who was indefatigable in his enthusiasm and the way he put everything together. You know, it takes a village, not only to raise a child, but it takes a village to accomplish any great enterprise. And so I want to express my deepest gratitude, my deepest love for all of you. Doing Humanity Rising in the midst of Ubiquity University has in some ways been the love of my life. I have felt so full and so connected with all of you. It's been a ceaseless inspiration for those of us who've been in the leadership. So thank you all. You can join several of the panelists in the after chat. You'll see the link in the chat box. Stan has just put it in. You received the link in your Zoom reminders for today. And then we'll see everybody next Friday, same time, same station, next Friday for this new configuration of Humanity Rising. Thank you, everyone. Love you all. Bye for now.